we just released a plugin.
We did.
It's called FigDone, and it's on the Figma community for anyone to download.
We just hit 3,400 downloads.
Yeah, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Right? We wanted to see if we can fix certain things in Figma.
Yeah.
And we don't have the coding chops to do it. So we had
not.
to recruit our friend Adol Barghouti, who was able to come in there and, in a couple of days, basically put this thing out, which was amazing. And I guess it would be cool to kind of talk about why we did that, right? Because it's not just a plugin. I guess there was a lot of philosophy that went behind the scenes. About,
the whole thing came out of a conversation.
Exactly.
We were talking about, how cool it is and how much of a great tool Figma is, but there are some things that we would change.
Right.
Like Figma is a great tool for collaboration. All of the kind of new features they have around collaborating with designers is amazing. Even collaborating with other stakeholders in like a Fig Jam is awesome. Facilitation is awesome. It's like this playground, this infinite canvas, and that's awesome. But for other types of roles and collaborating between types of roles, there are some things that can be improved.
Yeah.
Like from a dev collaboration perspective, there's things that can be improved. From a product owner standpoint, like a project or product owner, product manager.
Yeah.
That's really where this idea came from, right?
Yeah, you said earlier like the word infinite canvas, right? So it's like you were talking about tools like Figma or Miro, a Sketch, where you basically have this like big expanse and you can work on a kind of a whiteboard that stretches everywhere. And today in Figma, I guess like if a developer needs something, they are kind of coming in there and using the inspector to just like see bits of code, but they're not really able to see if something is done or it's like on its way to being done.
Yeah.
So if you like kind of look at the whiteboard here, we're working on Infinite Canvas ourselves. We have the Figma frame, and on the left here we have like the different what are they called? The layers, the frame list. And then here we have our little tools and all the things that we need to work in Figma. But the tools over here, they're kind of dumb. Like
the layer list.
The layer list, I mean. Yeah, it doesn't really give you much information.
No.
And so even though we have this like really intelligent sort of big whiteboard, like smart wall, infinite canvas, it has similar limitations to an actual wall.
Yeah.
Like if you put a post-it up on a wall and you want to know which of the ideas are selected, maybe you can put like stickers on them, but like there's not much you can do with that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas on a computer, technically we should be able to see all these layers of information on top and you can turn them on and off.
Even the way you would want to arrange post-its on a wall. Like sometimes you do the exercise where you sort stuff and you kind of put them in columns, but it's a very manual thing, and the same is mostly true of Figma.
Exactly.
Because the information is very surface level, right? There's not more to it than just the frame, which is kind of, I guess, really where the idea of this was born from, is how much more information can you include in a frame? So status is one idea, maybe adding extra information about like the behavior of a frame. Just anything that you think might be worth adding to a frame, how could we get that information somehow?
So like if we look at the frame here, right, and imagine you're able to like turn on a toggle and then you get like arrows that show you like text, explaining something. That's one. And the way that's currently done in tools like Figma today is that people kind of start drawing just extra boxes.
Totally.
But then that ends up adding stuff in the list over here, right? Like you start getting this mess of stuff that isn't...
clutter.
Yeah, exactly. It's not part of the actual... It's not part of the design. It's information on top of the design.
Yeah.
And in a similar way, like what we thought could be interesting with FigDone is this frame has a name, like usually something like frame, 7.
Frame 6. Copy.
Copy 218. Right? That's kind of but that's usually the name of the frame.
Yeah.
But that's like you look at that in the list and you're like, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
What am I looking at here? And so what if instead it had like a green box and a check mark and you could see the exact same thing over here and it's like, oh cool, like I can just kind of look and see whether in the list on the side or on the frame directly, is this ready to code? So the devs just come in and they're maybe even able to toggle like a filter.
Yeah,
Only show me things that are done.
Yeah. And I think on top of that, it's like, okay, this is great. Now we have this thing that's locked to the frame, but how can you see that from a glance? Like, do you have to just look at each frame and look at the status? So the next thought process was then to add, okay, well, what if you could have like a list that showed actually what is the status of each canvas on the frame? Mm-hmm. So taking that layer list and turning it into basically more information. So this one, you'd have like a little checkbox here, and then these guys would all be kind of, let's say, done.
Right.
And then you have each separate box for each different status of canvas. And that way you could actually, at a glance, like rather than try and figure out, look through all the layers, look at all the different canvases, you could at a glance see, okay, well, 80% of the project is ready to go, 10% of the project is still in progress, like information that would affect actually how your production is going, like from a product standpoint. Like, okay, how far along are we on this project?
Yeah, that's actually, that like for now, obviously it's a plugin, so it's like an extra window that sort of hovers on top of the Figma frame, but like in reality, it could have, if it was something that was built into Figma, it could just be like an extra list over here that, or like a tooling on the top over here where you can see, show done, and then it just hides everything else.
Yeah.
And that was, I guess, the first thing we can do about it is to try and make a plugin, see how it feels, and it's pretty cool, right? Like for now, it's like kind of easy. It's a simple tool. We're seeing how people use it, like all the people that downloaded it, and we're learning about what people want, right? People want things like custom statuses, and so it's clear that there's a gap there. People are feeling like, oh, it's cool that I'm able to in Figma see the state of my task without having to pull my data into Jira or into some other task management tool and see, okay, let me see the screen in Figma. Oh, that one's called frame whatever. Is that the one that's in Jira? This happens in design all the time where like we update the screen on Figma and then you forget to copy and paste it into Jira. And it's like, oh, this is such a mess.
Nightmare. I think that's one of the most interesting things about this process is like we made this with really no strong intention, but because this is a small step in a direction that I think a lot of people might find interesting in terms of adding more information. There's a lot of plugins that kind of try and do this type of thing. And I think that the reason they try and do this type of thing is because there's a need for it. There's a need for more information on the canvas without cluttering the canvas. So it's been cool to see people respond to that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think like in terms of where we think this can go and like what kind of implications we think this has on our workflow. Yeah, it's like I guess the hope is to bring. So Figma's always had this sort of mission of bridging the gap between like the designer, the product manager, the developer. Yeah. Because now like you design something in Figma, you share the link to the dev team or the PM. Yeah. And then they're able to see things, inspect them, get the information they need. But as you're drawing up here, like we're trying to bring the steps closer to each other. Yeah. But there's still right now like a thing where up here we have Figma or like whatever design tool. Yeah. And then like there's this like weird disconnect to the dev tools. I'm going to use Jira because that's the most common. Yeah. And devs almost have to kind of go to both all the time. Yeah. And it would be cool if they knew that they could only go to Figma for design purely. Yeah. And it was only for Jira for code. Yeah.
Exactly. Bug fixes, things that are really in the domain of code.
That's it. And so I think that's kind of where we're seeing this. And then, Figma is like the idea we put out into the world, but this idea that there's layers that you can put on top of the design tool is, I think, universal. Yeah. Right? And it would be awesome to see more of that kind of thinking. It's like where plugins aren't just adding simple things to the design itself, but it's rather things outside of the design that designers and others around them need to take something from drawings to live product.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's the coolest thing. I think one of the coolest things about Figma is this community element, and we're happy to contribute in whatever small way. And yeah, it's been a huge lesson learned. I don't think it's going to be the first Figma plugin we do.
No.
For sure.
It's addictive.
It's addictive.
To watch that like counter go up. People actually want to use something that you think is helpful.
Yeah,
you know, like,
yeah, totally.
We all agree this thing works, and so yeah. Awesome, man. So that's it for today's episode. And, we wanted to kind of share this sort of mental model around why this plugin was made, but even the larger idea around data layers on top of a design tool.
Totally.
And if you guys are interested in downloading that, you can go to the Figma community and look up FigDone.
Yep.
Or check out our website, pragmatics.studio, and download it from there. Otherwise, thank you all for tuning in. We'll leave some cool stuff in the show notes, like links to the history of the infinite canvas, links to the plugin, to our website. And yeah, thank you to our editor, Shin Ling, for doing such a great job, working on this podcast with us. We're really excited to see where this podcast is going to go now that our team is slightly growing. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Perfect.